Hello, and welcome to another professional development training. This time we will explore the attendance tool in Moodle. It's a relatively easy tool to set up and use, and once you understand its one small quirk, I think you'll find it makes your classroom management far easier. In our short training today, we will look at how to set up the attendance tool, add the attendance block to your course's front page, and then take attendance. We'll show you how the attendance module works with the Gradebook and how to manually adjust and override the attendance grade if you need to. Finally, we'll show you how to share the output. Let's get started. The best practice is to set up your attendance tool before the class starts, even before the students are entered into your class, if at all possible. The attendance tool and block are both created within the course, not within the site, so they're course specific. We need to be at the course's front page to start the process. The attendance tool and the attendance block are separate items. You need to set up the attendance tool first, and only then can you open the attendance block. So to get started, we click on the Turn Editing On button, and then, since this is a point-gaining activity, use the Add an Activity option and select Attendance. In the Adding a New Attendance screen, you can modify the name if you wish, say to Participation, or simply leave it as it is. But there must be a name in this required field. You can use the pull-down to select the total number of points for attendance. Here we'll select 10 points, assuming 1 point for each of the 10 class weeks, but you can choose however many points you wish. There are also group settings within the common module, but since we typically take attendance on an individual basis, we will not discuss these during this training. Because we have not set up our sessions, rather than clicking Save and Return to Course, we will click Save and Display to jump immediately to our settings and save us a few keystrokes. There are 5 tabs on the Attendance for the Course Setup page: Sessions, Add, Report, Export, and Settings. The Sessions screen is currently empty as we have not set up any class sessions. But note the options on the upper right, where you can select sessions for the entire class, all, or view by the month, week, or day. In order for us to add class sessions, we click on the Add tab. The quickest way to create the class sessions is to select the click box for Create Multiple Sessions. While it is possible to enter individual sessions one at a time, it doesn't make much sense to do so. Once we click the Multiple Sessions box, the Session End Date options become active. We enter in the term's start date and our class start time. And since we are entering all of the sessions for the entire course, we can use the start date and time of our first class session instead, if we wish. Under the duration, we enter the length of our typical class session in hours and minutes. Let's say 4 hours. For the session end date, enter the final date of the module or term. In the session days, click on each day of the week the course meets. In this case, let's say we meet twice a week on Monday and Wednesday. Note that the selection box comes before the day of the week, not after it. In the frequency option, don't be confused. If the class meets every week, even if it's on multiple days, choose 1 week. If the class only meets every other week, you would choose 2 weeks, and so on. We will see how this option is used in just a moment. Finally, we can enter an optional description, but you don't need one. The default setting of Regular Class Session is fine. Click Add Session to save. You will see an intermediate screen that says Sessions Successfully Generated, with a Continue button. This should clear by itself in a second, but we can click on it to move forward. If we click on the Sessions tab in the screen that appears, we will see all of the classes listed for the course sessions we just made. If for any reason you do not see any, make sure the All button is selected. If your course has a lab session associated with it, you can add the lab sessions here as well. Go back to the Add tab. Let's say in this case In addition to the class meetings on Monday and Wednesday, your class has a 4-hour lab session every other Thursday. We have already entered the regular class meeting sessions, so now we want to add in only the lab sessions. As before, we choose the click box for multiple sessions, use the same session beginning and end dates, set the duration for 4 hours, and click the session day box for Thursday, but this time select a frequency of 2 weeks. In other words, the lab meets every 2 weeks. In the description block, we enter Lab Session and click on the button for Add Session, and then click on the Sessions tab in the screen that appears. Now we see the complete layout for the course. Monday, Wednesday, regular class sessions, along with the lab on Thursdays every other week. Note that we didn't have to put in a specific date that ended our class sessions. Moodle worked around the calendar and stopped by the end of our term date. In the event that classes don't meet for a particular scheduled day, say because of a national holiday or if labs aren't held in the final week of class, you can remove those spurious sessions by clicking on the Delete gray X icon. If you try to remove a session, Moodle will give you a pop-up screen to have you verify it. You can also use the gray gear icon to modify anything within a given session. At this point, all of your sessions have been created. But before you start taking attendance, it is wise to verify your settings. The 4 default options are P for present, L for late, E for excused, and A for absent. The default grade is 2 points for present, 1 point for late or excused, and 0 points for absent. You can modify any of these settings and even add your own unique characterization if you wish. You can even use negative grades. It is important to verify that your points add up to what you want for the total attendance points in the course. Otherwise, the system may automatically make adjustments in the gradebook that could confuse your students later on in the course. Here's an example. If we meet both on Monday and Wednesday for 10 weeks, 20 sessions, at 2 points per session, that's a total of 40 points, plus Thursday lab sessions every other week for a total of 5 sessions at 2 points a session, gives us a course total of 50 attendance points. Since we set the attendance grade value at 10 points earlier, the system will modify the 50 points that they earned to match up to the 10 points in the gradebook, basically dividing all of the points earned by 5. While this makes sense mathematically, it can confuse students and create extra work for the instructor to explain this. It would be better to either modify the total points available for attendance or modify the grade points in the attendance module so that they end up matching 1-to-1. As we will see later on, the easier we can make this for students to understand, the better. Here, the easiest option is to go back and change the total points for attendance to 50. We do that by following the breadcrumbs back to the course front page, clicking on the gear icon next to attendance, and modifying the point pull-down to read 50, then save and display to return to the session screen. We have set up the class sessions, the point values for attendance, and finished the attendance tools set up for the course. The green dots underneath the Actions column are what we use to take attendance. But before we do that, there's one more step we have to take to make taking attendance even easier. We will add the attendance block. To do that, we go back to the course front page, and under the Add a Block option, add Attendance Block from the pull-down. Once the attendance block appears, click on the gray gear icon to change the settings. You can display this block only on the main course page or on all the course pages. The default is the course main page. You can choose both the region, screen area, and the weight for the block. Weight is sort of a misnomer. It really means how close to the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen you want the block to appear. -10 makes the block appear at the very top of the column, while a +10 makes it appear on the very bottom. 0 means it sits in the middle of the column. So if we want our attendance block to be relatively visible, we might choose -9 to have it very close to the top. Note that there are 2 settings, one of which is the default for all pages, and the second block which controls this particular page. Since we're currently on the front or main page, we also want to set the weight to -9 in that section to avoid overwriting the default. Save changes. Our attendance block is now visible in the upper corner. While this does the same things as clicking the attendance link and then moving through the various tabs on the attendance page, the block is a good visible reminder for us to take attendance and more efficiently links us to where we have to go to take that attendance. Let's assume that we're in our class and we just started and now it's time to take attendance. We can either click on the Take Attendance link in the attendance block we just created, or we can click on the attendance link on the front page and go to the Settings tab. The main difference is that the Take Attendance link takes us directly to today's class session, while the attendance link on the front page takes us to the Sessions page. If we're on the Sessions page, we have to click on the green button for the correct class date to get to the same input screen that the Take Attendance link took us directly to. Obviously, the Take Attendance link in the attendance block is more efficient. In the attendance page, we see the roster of the class, the type of session, regular or lab, the date, and the time. It is important that we verify that we are entering the correct attendance before we start doing it. We have 4 options, P, L, E, and A, or more if we added additional ones, for each student, along with a remarks box. All we have to do is click on the appropriate radio buttons to indicate what's going on with the student. The remarks box can be very helpful. You can enter things like, student emailed that she would be late, the student was ill today, or the student was 5, 10, 15, or even 20 minutes late. Whatever is necessary to remind you about what was going on during that particular class session. These comments in the remarks section will appear in the reports of attendance. Note, remember our policy is that teachers cannot excuse absences. You may wish to either remove that option under the settings block or change its name to something else if you want to distinguish between students who told you they would be absent from those who neglected to do so. When you are done making entries, click on the Save Attendance button at the bottom of the screen. Note that once attendance has been saved, the attendance date becomes an active link that allows you to go back and edit any of the attendances. The green dot now shifts to a green arrow to let you do much the same thing. By clicking on the date, we notice that some students appear in red text. This is because we neglected to mark their attendance before we save the attendance for the day. We can now enter those missing attendances, save again, and return to the sessions page. Opening the day's record again, we see all the red highlighting is gone, indicating that all of our students have had their attendance recorded in one way or the other. Now we can get a report on the attendance by clicking on the Report tab. Here we see a layout of all the class sessions along with the attendance taken for each session so far, a running total per student of each type of attendance, and the running grade based on the point values we set for attendance in the Settings tab. This is a quick way to identify any students who may be in difficulties due to lack of participation or attendance. If there are too many sessions shown, we can use the buttons on the top of the screen to reduce it to a particular week, day, or month. Should we wish to download our report, we can click on the Export tab and just keep all the defaults as they are. The only option you may wish to change is the Include Not Taken sessions, if you wish to see the blanks for class sessions which haven't occurred yet to take grades manually offline. If we go to the Gradebook by clicking on Settings, Course Administration, Grades, and scroll all the way to the end, because attendance is the most recently created grade we have, we see that attendance has automatically been entered into our Gradebook. Notice that the grades don't match. We've arrived at the one small quirk I mentioned at the start of this presentation. When we entered our first attendance, those students who were present had a grade of 2 out of 2 in the attendance book. However, in the Gradebook, those students who attended the first session and were not late have 50 out of 50, while those students who were late, 1 point instead of 2, only have 25 points, while those that were absent have 0 points out of 50. Sadly, the way that Moodle works with attendance in the Gradebook is somewhat confusing to students. Here's an example of what is happening. The attendance book sums up the attendance points as earned, a running total, while the Gradebook calculates the current grade based on taking the current earned percentage of points and multiplying that against the total possible points for attendance. For instance, our student in the example, by the end of the second class, has earned 2 out of 4 possible points in the attendance block, or 50%. The gradebook then calculates 50% of the total possible attendance points, 20 in this case, and records 10 points in the gradebook. At the end of the course, the attendance grade in the attendance module and in the Moodle gradebook will align if the points are on a 1-to-1 basis. Otherwise, the gradebook will adjust the scores as explained earlier in the class. As you can imagine, this disparity in grades can be a source of frustration for the students and should be explained to them in class. Best practice is to have the students verify the correctness of their attendance in the attendance block on a continuing basis and not worry about the value of their attendance grade until the end of the term. Using the hide option in the gradebook doesn't help, as the score is still included in the student's total running score in the gradebook. The best option is to include a statement as a label, as there is no description block for the attendance link, something like the following. This is just a suggested text. You can use whatever modification you need to make on it. Make sure that the way you state this notice matches the requirements of the attendance policy of the university. For instance, even though the excused absence is in quotation marks, it is important for students to realize that instructors are not able to excuse absences. In order to see how students interact with the attendance tools, let's sign out as instructors and sign back in as a student. Once the students sign in to the class, the attendance becomes immediately visible in the corner based on our earlier settings. They can see how many sessions have been completed in the class so far, how many sessions they were present for, how many times they were late, and their total cumulative attendance grade and the percentage of attendance. Clicking on the attendance link in the attendance block not only shows the same information that was on the home page, clicking on the All button will show each class session and the recorded status and remarks for those sessions. Clicking on Course Administration Grades, they can see their attendance grade in the gradebook. Again, it's a percentage of the total possible attendance points, not the running total. So there is no mystery here for the students. They can view the gradebook and they can view their attendance record. If the instructor clearly states the difference between how attendance is being accounted for in the attendance block versus the gradebook in the beginning of the class, student confusion should be kept to a minimum. So let's log out as a student and log back in as an instructor and sign back into our class. Again, this is a case where the attendance block is much more efficient than using something like the gradebook. From the attendance block, we can select Report and then click All to get a copy of the student's attendance. The Export tab allows us to quickly download it all into Excel. We can do much the same in Gradebook, but it will take more steps. However, in the Gradebook, all grades can be pulled rather than only the attendance, so the choice of method depends on what you're looking for in terms of information. Using Course Administration Grades, we can enter the gradebook and, if necessary, make manual adjustments to the overall attendance grade for a student. To do so, we click on the Turn Editing On button and then overwrite the current automatic score. You may also enter an explanation in the comments box just to the right of the score box. Then click on the Update button at the bottom of the screen. Notice that when we turn editing off, the comments disappear from view, but the manually changed attendance field remains highlighted. This tells us that a manual entry has been made. Be aware that manual entries will override any future change in the automatic scoring. And that's all it takes to set up and use the attendance tool within Moodle. Just as with the student work and grades, using Moodle's attendance tool allows us to archive the student's work within your class. This can be very helpful later on in case of grade grievances or other administrative actions, when a complete picture of student performance is very useful. We hope you've enjoyed the session, and we look forward to seeing you again in a future professional development training. Please remember to take the quiz associated with this training to get full credit for the course. Thank you for your time, and as always, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.